You are standing in the hallway. Your international colleague is walking toward you. You know the vocabulary, you know the grammar, but your brain says, wait, do not speak. We need 3 more months of practice before we are ready for a real conversation.
So you just smile, nod, look at your phone, and the moment completely disappears. You wait to feel perfectly ready, but the secret is, ready never comes.
I'm Rose, and welcome to Speak English Naturally.
And I'm Jack. Today we are putting English into a real situation, not a perfect classroom.
Exactly. We are talking about the gap between learning English and actually using it. That terrifying moment when you have to open your mouth, but you feel about 40% prepared.
Today's situation is going to hit very close to home for a lot of people. We are going to look at the preparation trap.
Oh, I know this trap. This is when you try to write a complete movie script in your head before you say a single word.
Yes, and we are going to see what happens when the script breaks. Let's jump right into it. I will set the scene. So, Rose and I are at the office. We are sitting at our desks. There is a new manager visiting from the head office in London. His name is David.
Okay, I am picturing David. He drinks a lot of tea and walks very fast.
Sure, let's go with that. And I am sitting at my desk looking very stressed. I am holding a pen and staring at a notebook. You walk over to my desk. I will be myself trying to prepare. You be you.
Got it. I walk over. Hey, Jack, what are you doing? You look like you are studying for a final exam.
I am preparing my sentences. David is coming over in about 10 minutes to ask about the quarterly report. I need to be ready.
You have a whole page of notes there. Are those numbers for the report?
No, this is my script. I wrote down exactly what I am going to say. Look. Hello, David. It is a pleasure to meet you. I have prepared the data you requested regarding the third quarter performance.
That sounds like an email, not a human being.
It is grammatically perfect, Rose. I checked it twice. And then, when he says, "How are the numbers?" I have my second sentence ready. The numbers reflect a steady increase in user engagement.
Okay, but what if he doesn't ask, how are the numbers? What if he says something completely different?
He won't. This is a standard business interaction. I have mapped out the entire conversation tree. I am ready. I just need 5 more minutes to memorize it.
Jack, look up.
What? No, I need to focus.
Jack, David is walking toward your desk right now.
What? No! He is early! I am not ready! I haven't memorized the transition sentence yet.
Well, he is here. I will step back. Good luck with your movie script.
Okay. Deep breath. I am ready. I know my lines.
For this part, I will play David, the visiting manager. I walk up to your desk. I look a little tired. I am holding a cup of coffee.
Okay, I stand up. Hello, David. It is a pleasure to meet you. I have prepared the data you requested regarding the third quarter performance.
Oh, hi, Jack, thanks. Listen, before we get into the report, I just had the craziest taxi ride from the airport. Does it always rain this much in the morning here? I am completely soaked, and I think I left my umbrella in the cab. Honestly, I need a minute to just dry off. Do you happen to know where I can grab some paper towels? Jack? Are you okay?
The numbers reflect a steady increase in user engagement.
Okay. Let's stop the role play there.
That was a disaster. I completely froze.
You completely ignored my question about the rain and the paper towels, and you just read your script about user engagement.
I panicked. My brain was looking at my piece of paper, and there was no section for crazy taxi ride or paper towels.
That is exactly what happens when you try to be 100% ready before you speak. Real life does not read your script.
It is so true. I was listening for my cue. I was waiting for you to say the exact words I prepared for. When you didn't, the whole system crashed. My English disappeared like Wi-Fi in an elevator.
And let's look at what happened to your confidence in that moment. You felt ready when you had the paper, but the second the situation changed, how did you feel?
Totally helpless. I felt like my English was at a beginner level again, even though I know how to talk about rain and paper towels.
Exactly. This is the speaking brain freeze. You had the vocabulary in your head. If I gave you a written test on office supplies and weather, you would score 100%. But in the reality of the moment, the pressure of not being ready locked you up.
So, how do we fix this? Because I know exactly how our listeners feel. You want to sound smart. You want to sound professional. So, you prepare. You translate in your head. You wait until the sentence is perfectly constructed before you open your mouth.
But that is the problem. You are waiting for perfection. You are waiting for the feeling of being perfectly ready. Let's do that scene again. But this time, Jack, throw the paper away.
Throw it away? But I need a plan.
Your plan is to listen and react. That is it. No script, no memorized sentences. Just jump into the conversation before you feel ready.
Okay, this feels dangerous, but let's try it.
We are rewinding the scene. I am David. I am walking up to your desk with my coffee. I am soaked from the rain.
I stand up. I take a breath.
Hi, Jack. Man, I just had the craziest taxi ride from the airport. Does it always rain this much in the morning here? I am completely soaked, and I think I left my umbrella in the cab. Do you happen to know where I can grab some paper towels?
Oh no, that sounds awful. Yes, the rain can be crazy here. Let me show you the kitchen. There are paper towels right next to the sink.
Oh, fantastic, thanks. I appreciate it. I'll just clean up a bit, and then we can look at those quarterly numbers you prepared.
Sounds perfect. Take your time. I have the report ready whenever you are.
And scene!
Wow, that felt completely different.
Let's break that down. How much of that did you plan in your head before you spoke?
0. Absolutely 0. I just listened to what you said, and I answered the immediate problem. You were wet. You needed towels. I addressed that.
And notice what happened to your grammar. Was it perfect?
I have no idea. I wasn't thinking about grammar. I was just trying to communicate.
That is the magic trick. In the first try, you were focused on performance. In the second try, you were focused on connection. You spoke before you felt perfectly ready, and it worked beautifully.
Let's pull this apart because this is such a huge barrier for English learners. The feeling of, I'm not ready to speak yet.
It is a very safe feeling, isn't it? As long as you are preparing, you are not failing. You can sit in your room, reading vocabulary lists, practicing pronunciation with an app, and you feel very productive.
Yes, the illusion of progress. You tell yourself, when I finish this course, then I will be ready to speak to native speakers. Or, when I know the past perfect tense perfectly, then I will start raising my hand in meetings.
But language doesn't work like a video game. You don't unlock speaking mode only after you collect enough vocabulary coins.
I love that. Vocabulary coins.
It is true. People think, I only have 500 words. I need 2,000 words to survive a conversation. No, you can survive a conversation with 50 words if you are willing to look a little messy and just try.
I think we need to talk about why we do this. Why do we write scripts in our heads?
It is fear, mostly. Fear of looking stupid. Fear of making a mistake and having someone judge us.
Absolutely. When I wrote that script for David, I wanted control. A conversation feels unpredictable, like a wild animal. If I have a script, I feel like I have put the animal in a cage. I can control the outcome.
But as we saw, you can't control the other person. You prepared for a business meeting, and David brought a weather crisis.
Right. And when you are busy holding on to your script, you are not actually listening. That is a massive point. In the first try, I wasn't listening to you. I was just waiting for you to stop making noises so I could press play on my memorized speech.
Press play. That is exactly what it sounds like. The numbers reflect a steady increase. It sounds robotic.
But in the second try, when I threw the script away, I had to listen, because I had nothing else to rely on.
And because you listened, you could react naturally. You said, "Oh no, that sounds awful." That is real English.
Let's talk about a very specific feeling. The moment right before you speak. When someone asks you a question and your brain starts racing, you are trying to find the perfect word. You are checking the grammar. Wait, is it in the past tense? Is it an uncountable noun?
Yes, the internal grammar check.
And while you are doing this grammar check, what is happening in the real world?
Silence. Awkward, heavy silence. The other person is just looking at you, waiting. And the longer the silence goes on, the more panicked you feel.
Exactly. The silence builds the pressure. And then, because the pressure is too high, you just say, "Yes, thank you," even if it makes no sense.
So what is the strategy here? How do we jump in before we feel ready without totally freezing?
I like to use something I call the start and trust method.
Start and trust. I like the sound of that. How does it work?
Usually, we try to build the whole sentence in our head before we open our mouth. We want to know the beginning, the middle, and the end.
Right, like building a bridge perfectly before you take the first step.
Exactly. But in a real conversation, you don't have time to build the whole bridge. You just have to start walking and build the bridge while you're in the air.
That sounds terrifying.
It is, but it is also the only way to speak fluently. You just start the sentence with a simple phrase. You open your mouth and start making sound, and you trust that your brain will find the rest of the words while you are talking.
Give me an example. Let's say we are in a meeting and I ask you a complicated question. I say, "Jack, what do you think is the main reason our sales dropped last month?"
Okay, the old way, the wait until I am ready way, would be this. I sit there in silence for 10 seconds. I translate your question. I think of my opinion. I translate it into English. I check the grammar, and then I speak.
And by that time, everyone in the meeting is asleep.
Right, now let's use the start and trust method. Ask me the question again.
Jack, what do you think is the main reason our sales dropped last month?
Well, off the top of my head, I think there are a few reasons, but the main one is probably the new competitor in the market.
That was smooth. Did you have that whole sentence planned?
No. When I opened my mouth to say, "well," I had no idea how the sentence was going to end.
This is a huge realization for language learners. Native speakers do not plan their sentences to the end before they start speaking.
Never. We stumble, we pause, we use filler words, we change direction in the middle of a sentence.
Let's look at the phrase you used to jump in. You said, "Well, off the top of my head."
Yes, off the top of my head. This is a beautiful rescue phrase. When you say this, it means, I'm going to give you an answer right now without thinking deeply or checking any facts. So don't expect perfection.
It buys you time. While your mouth is saying, "Well, off the top of my head," your brain has 2 whole seconds to figure out what to say next.
2 seconds in a conversation is a massive amount of time. It is a lifeline.
Let's give our listeners a few more of these starting blocks. Phrases you can use to start speaking immediately, even when you feel 0% ready.
Okay, how about when someone asks you a question and you literally have no idea what to say yet? You need to buy time, but you don't want to just stare at them.
You can simply narrate what you are doing. You can say, "That is an interesting question. Let me think for a second."
Let me think for a second. It is so simple, but it is so powerful. You are taking control of the pause. Instead of an awkward, silent panic, you are announcing a confident pause.
And you are speaking English. You are already in the conversation. You didn't wait to be ready to answer the big question. You were ready enough to answer with a small phrase.
Let's try another one. What if someone explains a new project to you and then says, "Does that make sense? What are your thoughts?" But you haven't processed it yet.
You could say, "Give me a second to gather my thoughts."
Gather my thoughts. I like that. It paints a picture. Your thoughts are scattered all over the room, and you just need a moment to pick them up and put them in a nice little pile.
Exactly. It shows that you are engaged, you are listening, but you are human. You need a moment to process.
Another great situation where we wait too long is when we want to join a group conversation.
Oh, this is the hardest one. You are at a networking event or a dinner party. 3 people are talking in English very fast. They are laughing, they are telling stories.
And you are standing there, holding your drink, smiling until your face hurts.
And you have a funny comment in your head. You have a great story to add, but you are waiting for the perfect pause.
You think, when they finish this topic completely, and there is a solid 3 seconds of silence, then I will step in with my perfectly constructed sentence.
But that pause never happens. Real group conversations do not have traffic lights. It is a highway, and the cars are always moving. You just have to merge.
So, how do you merge before you feel ready? Because if you wait for the perfect gap, the topic changes, and your funny comment is suddenly completely irrelevant.
You have to make a small noise to claim your space. You can't start with a massive, complex sentence. You start with agreement.
Right. You nod, and you say something short like, "Absolutely," or, "That is so true."
Once you say, "That is so true," the group will look at you. You have their attention. Now you have to speak. You just forced yourself into the deep end of the pool.
It is scary, but it works. You can say, "That is so true. Actually, something similar happened to me." And then you just go. You build the bridge while walking on it.
I think a lot of learners feel like if they start a sentence and get stuck in the middle, it is a disaster. It is a public failure.
Yes, the fear of the mid-sentence crash. You start strong. I think we should change the marketing strategy because, and then your brain goes completely blank.
What do? Do you apologize and run away?
No, you just use a recovery phrase. You admit what is happening with a smile. You say, "Sorry, I lost my train of thought."
I lost my train of thought. It happens to native speakers every single day. I do it on this podcast.
We all do. Or you can say, "Let me start again."
Yes, let me start again. You are allowed to hit the reset button. The conversation is not a recorded performance. It is a messy, living thing.
I think we need to talk about the physical feeling of not being ready. Because we can give people all the phrases in the world, but if their heart rate is at 150 beats per minute, the phrases disappear.
It is a physical stress response. When you are put on the spot, your body thinks you are in danger. Your brain shuts down the language center and prepares to run away from a tiger.
But there is no tiger. It is just your colleague asking about the weather.
How do you trick your body into calming down so you can actually use the English you know?
For me, it is about lowering the stakes. You have to lower the goal. When your goal is speak perfectly, impress everyone, make 0 grammar mistakes, the pressure is too high.
You freeze because the goal is impossible.
Exactly. So change the goal. Right before you speak, tell yourself, "My goal is just to connect. My goal is just to get the meaning across, even if it is ugly."
I like that. Ugly English is still English. If I order a coffee and I say, "I want coffee black, please, size large," it is grammatically strange, but I am going to get exactly the coffee I want.
Communication happened. Success.
We put so much pressure on ourselves to sound like a news anchor or a university professor. But most daily communication is just simple exchanges of information and basic empathy.
Think about my first role play with David. I was trying to sound like a corporate robot. The numbers reflect a steady increase.
And what David really needed was someone to say, "Wow, you are wet. here are some towels.
The best English in that moment was the simplest English. And the simplest English doesn't require a lot of preparation. It just requires you to be present.
Let's talk about a practical way to train this jumping in muscle. Because it is a muscle. The more you do it, the less scary it becomes.
I think one of the best ways is to practice thinking out loud when you are alone.
Oh, this is a great exercise. How do you do it?
You pick a random topic, let's say coffee versus tea. You give yourself 0 preparation time. You hit a timer on your phone for 1 minute and you just start talking.
And you force yourself not to stop. Even if you don't know the word, you have to describe it or talk around it.
Exactly. If you forget the word for caffeine, you can't stop. You have to say, the energy chemical in the drink.
The energy chemical. Perfect. You are building the skill of moving forward no matter what. You are training yourself that not being ready is fine. You can just figure it out on the way.
It is about becoming comfortable with the mess. Fluency is not the absence of mistakes. Fluency is the ability to keep going even when you make mistakes.
I want to highlight some of the lines we used today. The phrases that help you jump in, buy time, and manage the situation when you don't feel ready to speak.
Yes, let's pull out the lines that act like small life jackets. They keep you floating while you build your sentence.
The first one is from when you need to answer a question immediately, but you haven't deeply researched it. You just want to give your first thought.
The phrase is, off the top of my head.
This is a great warning sign to the listener. It says, "This is my initial thought," without preparation.
For example, off the top of my head, I think the meeting is at 3 p.m., but let me check my calendar.
Try this line with us. Off the top of my head.
Off the top of my head.
The next one is for when you are asked a complex question, and you literally need 2 or 3 seconds of silence to process it. You want to claim the silence, not panic in it.
You say, let me think for a second.
It is polite, it is natural, and it puts you in control.
For example, that is a tough question. Let me think for a second.
Say it with us. Let me think for a second.
Let me think for a second.
Our third line is for when someone asks for your opinion on a big topic, and you are still trying to organize your ideas.
The phrase is, give me a second to gather my thoughts.
I love the visual of gathering thoughts. It is very professional, but also very human.
For example, there is a lot of new information here. Give me a second to gather my thoughts.
Try this line with us. Give me a second to gather my thoughts.
Give me a second to gather my thoughts.
And finally, the recovery phrase. When you jump in before you are ready, you start a sentence and suddenly your brain goes completely blank. You forget what you were talking about.
You just smile and say, I lost my train of thought.
It is such a natural idiom. The train just drove away from the station without you.
For example, I was going to suggest the new location, but sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Say it with us. I lost my train of thought.
I lost my train of thought.
So today, we focused on action over perfection. We talked about why waiting to feel 100% ready is a trap that keeps you silent.
The truth is, confidence is not something you have before you speak. Confidence is something you build by speaking before you feel ready, surviving the messy moments, and realizing you are still alive.
Your small practical challenge today is this. The next time you are in an English environment, maybe a meeting, a class, or even just talking to a tourist on the street, do not let the perfect pause pass you by.
Just make a noise. Say, absolutely, or that is interesting. Or use one of our time-buying phrases like, let me think for a second. Jump into the pool before you check the temperature of the water.
And tell us in the comments, what is the situation that usually makes you freeze because you want to prepare your words first? Is it ordering food, phone calls, or office meetings? We want to know.
If this conversation helped you rethink your preparation habit, like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who also writes movie scripts in their head before saying hello.
And in the next episode, we are tackling a very specific kind of pain. What do you do when you successfully start a conversation, the other person replies, and you realize you have absolutely no idea what they just said because they used a heavy accent or slang?
Oh, that is the ultimate panic moment. Do you nod and pretend? Do you run away? We will give you the exact rescue strategies for that.
Bring your courage and a willingness to be a little messy. You've been listening to Speak English Naturally.
Keep your English natural, useful, and alive.
See you in the next conversation.